Thanks for having me.
I wanted to break down some of this piecemeal. First of which, I wanted you to talk about the lawsuit wanting Mark Zuckerberg to be forced to give up control of Facebook. In your opinion, is this even possible, and why?
Well, as is now, he has incontestable control over the company. His class of shares overpower the Class A shares. He has carte blanche to do what he wants with that company. He has control over the board. And when you look at the details of our lawsuit, the anti-competitive scheme was hatched and executed and at times commanded straight from him. And there's no reason to believe that if he divested a few of Facebook's key assets here or there, or awarded damages, that you would ever fix the more systemic problem with the markets that have been caused. You have great distortion in the markets, and he's at the center of it.
So I want to talk about some of those distortions that you mentioned, one of which is or the lawsuit is alleging really that they'd like WhatsApp and Instagram to be spun off or sold off from Facebook. What is the antitrust argument there?
Well, what's happening now, according to a lot of major news sources have reported, including Zuckerberg on his blog, that they are rapidly integrating WhatsApp, Instagram, and the core Facebook products. And the reason we've moved very quickly to bring this suit is that once that integration is over, it'll be impossible to break this up. It'll be impossible to take the giant amalgamation of data that integration will create, that back-end integration, and sort of put the genie back in the bottle. It's not just the data. The real issue is that right now the markets are somewhat segmented. WhatsApp has a global presence. Facebook's other products are more US heavy. When their backends are integrated, these products can communicate with each other. And essentially, you'll have 2 billion people in one giant social network. And at that point, we don't think a normal remedy will fix things.
So then how did this even get approved when all of these deals are going through in the first place?
Well, what's interesting is how regulators think of competition, and sometimes it can be a bit formalistic. At the time, I think they didn't think of an app, a third-party mobile app, as a competitor of a social network. But in reality, what they're competing for is that user engagement and the social data that comes from it, which is why a messaging app is a direct threat to Facebook, because people use it, interact with it, and you get that data that you can then use to target content and sell advertising. And that's what they're all vying for. And so what a regulator will often do is say, well, these two do very different things. They're not in competition. But now we know, and we know from Facebook's own documents that were published on NBC News, that they did very much find things like dating apps and messaging apps to be in direct competition with them. And so when a regulator looked at this, they probably didn't have the sort of view of the markets that would tell them that they were wading into incredibly concentrated markets.
I think one of the issues here is you have a lawsuit coming by 4 smaller competitors. How do you make this seem that it's not just 4 small competitors angry at the bigger guy's market share?
Well, the first thing to mention is, you're always going to have a monopolist extinguishing things as early as possible. And we don't know what they would have been if Facebook didn't pull the rug from under them. I mean, some of them were chat programs and messaging programs in competition with Facebook. There was a dating app, and now we know Tinder is this massive success. And we really don't know what would have happened if Facebook didn't sort of choose sides. A lot of what we're alleging is that when Facebook pulled the core APIs out of its platform, and it decided this in 2011, it then let developers think that their platform was stable for 3 years before they even made a peep that they were going to pull it. And then while they did that, they targeted the ones they wanted to win, the apps they wanted to win, and they asked them for their most sensitive data. And so what happened was the distortion occurred at the time my clients were competing. They never had a chance. And so, their size, I wouldn't think is very dispositive. I mean, the second point I want to make is we're proceeding as a class because Facebook checked, and found that 40,000 apps were affected by its decision. And 1,000 of the top apps had, I think 80% of them were going to be affected by the decision. And so if we can establish liability for these 4, we're establishing them for everyone that's hurt. And if anyone else is hurt, then they should do it. They should bring the suit now. So.
Well, thank you so much to Yavar Batahi. I appreciate your time. And I do want to just bring you Facebook's statement that we're getting. Facebook, of course, responding, saying that we operate in a competitive environment where people and advertisers have many choices. In the current environment where plaintiffs' attorneys see financial opportunities, claims like this are not unexpected, but they are without merit.